Okay, let's get the conversation going here on Business Morning. A couple of hours ago, or overnight to be more precise, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development says the government has released the payment or what they call the costs of feeding school pupils in the 33 participating states, which is the Food for School Children program of the Buhari's administration for January 2020, saying that they are proactively paid for January school feeding program in December because the approval has been made by the government. According to this statement, the minister in charge of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajia Sadia Umar Farouk, says that the funds were released and they were paying the funds, which is critical. They said they're paying it very early because it's critical to the success of the program. According to her, she said, quote, "We do not want any hitches and want to ensure that the school children are fed on time and without excuses." The minister also went to say that the government has received reports of improved attendance and improved hygiene among the school pupils, and saying that the nutritional quality of this feed the school children will not be compromised, quoting the minister's statement this morning, which was released by the special advisor on media to the Honorable Minister Halima Oyelade. That's coming through on that part of school feeding program of President Buhari's SIP. Let me ask Celestine Okeke, who is a lead partner, at SEEDI from our Abuja studios this morning, to try and track President Buhari's social investment program so far in 2019 and in a bit over the last 3 years, as we see a sharp reduction in annual budget for 2020, which is about 30 billion from a record 500 billion per annum over the last 3 years. Celestine, good morning, and it's good to have you on the program. We thank you for your time.
Good morning, Brasin. Thank you for having me.
Good. Let's just start from what came in about 10 hours ago from this Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajia Farouk, about the advance payment for the school feeding program for the month of January. Is this a news that gladdens your heart?
Okay, Brasin, in the first instance, it shouldn't be news. It shouldn't be news in the context of the fact that if you have a school feeding program that is designed to feed children that are in school, pupils in school, primary school, and the schools will resume second week January or thereabout. If you don't pay the people who are the service providers by December or even say November, in fact, for me, December is a little bit late. If you're not paying them by November, you don't have a contract that pays them at given periodic terms. I don't then think it's a good program. So that you pay them in December shouldn't be news. In all honesty, that shouldn't be news for us. There ought to be a program that says for first term, for second term, for third term, this is the cutoff time for making payment. This is the cutoff time for making this payment, for making that payment. So in all honesty, it's not news. But then it might speak to some fact that we have been clamoring and speaking about for a while now, to say, is there really a plan on how we want to deliver the SIP program? So in a way, it might be news to some person, but for me, it's not news because the payment ought to have gone out in October, November to enable these persons get the food items at the right time, at the right price, and at the right condition. Because if they get the payment in December, this is where we're 29, today is 30th, take for instance. When would they do the purchasing, the storing, the processing, and the rest? But let's take it as good news. The payments have been made. These people will get their meal when they resume school in second week December.
Okay, so let's roll back a bit to the beginning of the entire SIP program. Why did the administration think the social investment program was the way to go 3-4 years ago with those massive budgeting of about 500 billion every year up till this year?
So I think we all agree that at that time that there was a need to quickly begin to address the economic conditions of the bottom of the pyramid Nigerians, the very poor Nigerians. There was a need to begin to look at what can be done to some sort of palliative measures to stabilize their condition, while we look at improving the overall economic situation that would serve to improve their overall economic condition. So to that extent, the SIP was justified as at that point in time. But then we had the challenge of planning to what level, to what extent did we consciously plan the SIP program. Then secondly, to what extent do we also say this is what we want to do and this is for how long we want to do it? If you look at the fact that for the 3 years, 2016, 2017, 2018, we had a total of 1.5 trillion budgeted for it, but the actual release was somewhere between 453, 457 billion. That speaks to the fact that we didn't even have as much resources as we needed to fund the SIP. And that would have made us go back and say, look, if we're going to spend 453 or 457 billion, I can't remember the exact figure now, over a 3-year period, we need to be sure we're putting it into the right program that will deliver the benefit for Nigeria as a country. But that really didn't happen as much as I would have expected it to happen. Let's take the Empower program, for instance. Empower, in the first batch of it, engaged 200,000 Nigerians and was paying them 30,000 to either be deployed as agro-service providers, working in health centers, or working in primary schools. But then, if you do a Google search on fraud, scandal, corruption in the Empower program, you would hear stories of people who were sent to schools, not turning up for the schools, and they were sharing their payment with the head teachers in the school. You would hear all manner of stories. So, to that point, while we agreed there was a need to quickly bring out a large number of Nigerians from the poverty trap and keep them stabilized a bit, we also didn't factor in the Nigerian factor. We didn't take into consideration that there's a Nigerian factor that might derail the program. So now we have announced the 94% cut on the SIP program from 500 billion to 30 billion. Now the question then is, what the funds we had put in between 2016, 2017, and 2018, what impact? Have we measured the impact? The minister's press release is saying they have had stories on improved school enrollment, improved hygiene, and the rest. But I would then ask, where is the data to support that? To what extent has this improvement been made? And to what extent are we able to say, yes, the 457 or 453 billion we put in for these 3 years has delivered this good for us? Because Nigeria is presenting its economic situation where we cannot afford to let a million, not to talk of 1 billion, go into a venture that is not going to provide, that will not give us something we can be proud of. So if you ask me, we need to replan the entire SIP program. And if I think the replanning has started by the cutting of the budget by 94% to 30 billion. But then where will this 30 billion go into? If it's going to go into school feeding program, to what extent are we going to do school feeding program? What states do we intend to cover? Why are we covering such states? What schools do we want to cover? Why are we covering these schools? If we wanted to go into the trader money that did so well, if you ask me, what states do you want to focus the trader money on? What the demography of small businesses do you want to focus it on? What subsector do you want to put it in? We can't continue to run it very blindly. And in concluding for this question you asked me, I feel very disheartened that we moved the SIP from the VP's office and we put it in a new ministry. A new ministry that is presently struggling to have an office, have directors, have the deputy directors, get a PAMSEC, put up structures to run with. They might do that in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months. They're not organized to run the SIP program. We would have gone back to Ministry of Labor and Employment. I'm not even saying it's a fantastic ministry, but we would have gone back to that ministry, add SIP to it, create a directorate to manage it, and then the institution already available at the ministry would drive SIP fraud. But as it stands today, I have done searches. I have gone around to ask, where is the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development? I can't find it. So what structure do they have on ground to quickly run this program, to seamlessly run it? So it's a whole lot of concern for me as a person. But then we need SIP, but not in the way we're managing the present SIP program.
So when we talked about the social investment program, you talk about, yes, the initial thought was that it would serve as a palliative. The conditions precedent to offering those palliatives 3 years ago, are they significantly improved for Nigerians, as it were, that we see the SIP as an economic game changer? Or do you think the cutback, the massive reduction from about 500 billion to 30 billion in the annual budget means that the Buhari's administration is thinking, look, I think we've done enough for the SIP. We now need to move to brick and mortar. In other words, move from the SIP more like a fast food to more real nutritional meals that is heavy.
Okay, so in answering that question, I'll still go back to the fact, to what I said much earlier. why they were planning the SIP, I am using they consciously because I have not had much of a conversation that was done between the government and the private sector, government and the citizens to say, look, we are planning an SIP and this is what we want to achieve with it, and then get harvest input from people to design the SIP. I didn't see that happen. So it's still a day affair, the government affair. So I have not seen a document that says SIP is being planned for a 3-year, for a 4-year, for a 5-year period, and it's being planned to move XYZ number of persons from poverty to maybe this level of economic livelihood, or to say we are planning SIP to deliver on XYZ over a 3-4-year period, after which we would move on from it. That document is not available. I've not seen it. So whatever is happening is what I would like to call ad hoc, doing the convenient thing. So whether the budget cut for SIPs as a result of the fact that there's some indices, some metrics, that some targets that were set from the beginning have been met, and now we say, oh, we have done what we agreed to do, let's scale down and do the other side of which is the mortar and brick like described. I can't tell. Whether it's because we don't have the fund and we cannot source the fund from other places. I recall that I said, whereas the actual budgeting has been 1.5 trillion for a 3-year period, but the actual release has been 453, or I think 453 or 457 billion. Whether it's as a result of the fact that we don't have funds to keep funding it, we can't tell. Now, when Mr. President did the budget presentation, he merely said they were going to cut the budget for SIP by 94% from 500 to 30 billion. But there is no document anywhere detailing the fact why that is happening. Now, employer beneficiaries went on social media to say several things, call out several government agencies to say, look, you are not paying us. And then the minister said before the holidays that we are going to pay you, there are plans to pay you. Another story came out where they said there is no exit plan for the employer beneficiaries. And then she said, oh, we have an exit plan, we're going to roll it out. These are the things that we should have seen from the day one that will tell us that the SIP plan is for a 3-year, for a 4-year, or for a 5-year period. And that there will be a gradual scaling down of either the Empower, the trader money, or the school feeding program when these targets are met and the rest. So as far as this is concerned, SIP wasn't built with data. In the terms of the guys who took onto the Empower program, who are they in the first instance? Did we make a conscious plan to say we are picking those who have graduated in the last 5 years or in the last 4 years? Or we are picking those who are engineering graduates or science and tech graduates, and we are picking them because we want them to gain extra skills on this program or on that program? Those were not done. And the process for selecting beneficiaries, even for the trader money, was not scientifically done. We go to a market and register just anybody who comes up as a trader. So we can't tell. I can't tell why that budget cut down for SIP was done. Whether it's a result of the fact that we have met some targets we set, or because funding was scarce for us. And then I also said there was virtually no plan I can look at and say, oh, SIP is coming for a 4-year, for a 5-year, or for a 6-year period.
Do you think, Celestine, that it is too late, or is it too late for us to link the social investment program funding and activities into the mainstream of the economy in terms of, let's link it directly with the Ministry of Labor and Productivity, let's link it directly to other ministries or MDAs that we think that, yes, will help us derive maximum value moving forward? Is it too late? If yes, or if it's not too late, how do you think we should go about it?
It's not too late. You would often hear better now than never, better late than never. It's not too late. Now, let me draw you back a little bit to the UWIN program. I'm sure we all know the UWIN program. One of the pitfalls the UWIN program had was UWIN program was not run under a department or a directorate in the Ministry of Finance. You had an aide to the minister then who was managing the UWIN program. He ran the secretariat. And by the time he left the government, there was really nothing you could fall back to. So this is the department that ran UWIN. This is the board of information that was used to run UWIN. This is where you can go to and find information document that was used to run UWIN. And that was one of the biggest problems, because when Dr. Olusi left government then, it's like he took his briefcase and UWIN left with him. So it's not too late. We can just go back now and say, look, we want to run SIP under a government institution that has a 10-year plan or a 5-year plan, and that in the first year, this is what we want to do. Second year, this is what we want to, and this is how we intend to do it, so that we would have something that is built on data, built on a solid plan that is smart, something that is specific, that is realistic and time-bound. And it's not late. If you ask me, in all honesty, it's not late for us to go back and say, look, we need to do the SIP, because I tell you, there are Nigerians who are living way below the poverty line. People who 10,000, it looks like $1 million to them. People who 10,000 well managed will lift them up from poverty to not something not too fantastic, but way above poverty. But then we can't do it by clogging it with political interest, clogging with other things that are not scientific, that are not data-driven, that are not evidence-based. And I said something here one other time I was on your program, and I said, look, one of my biggest challenges with the Trader Money program is it wasn't run by a government agency that would have used established structures to deliver it. So then we had our vice president who was going from one state to the other to deliver the Empower program. And the cost of doing that was much more than the cost of delivering the program itself. But if we had run it through a government agency that has structures in place, maybe offices at the geopolitical regions, it can partner with state government to seamlessly deploy whatever we need to deploy for the benefit of the beneficiary. But then it's not late. We can go back deliberately and begin to replan the SIP program.
Interesting. Okay, Celestine, we appreciate your time this morning. In terms of outlook, final word here, at 30 billion for the year 2020, looking forward, do you think this figure might be going down gradually from 30 billion, maybe by 2021, 2022, we're looking at about 20 or 10 billion in terms of budgeting for the SIP?
I can't give you an answer off the top of my head for now, but one thing I know we have done in Margaret that we have written the ministry to say, look, what's the plan? What's the plan for SIP in the next 3 years, to be specific? What will this 30 billion be spent on? Will it be spent on easing out the Empower beneficiaries or to ease out the Trader Money? Because we have told Trader Money beneficiaries that you take 10,000, you repay, you get 50,000. So what exactly are we going to do with the 30 billion? What is the plan for the SIP, the entire body of SIP? We have asked that question. And until I get the response from the ministry, I can't tell you what I think would happen. But for me, I honestly believe we should begin to scale down the components we know we cannot impact much on, like the Empower for itself. We need to scale down completely from Empower, and we need to design something that works for us. So for me, until we get that feedback from government saying this is what they want to do, this is how they want to do it, we might just wake up next year and then they tell you, oh, we're going back to 500 billion as budget for the SIP. For now, I can't tell what will happen next.
Celestine Okeke, when you get that response, let's be the first to know. Thank you.
I'll share that with you.
Celestine Okeke, lead partner at SEEDI. That's an advocacy group for small and medium enterprises doing all of that there. Thank you so much. Of course, remind you what the story was over the last couple of hours. Overnight, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and Social Development says it has paid in advance or in arrears, sorry, in advance, I beg your pardon, yes, the cost of feeding pupils in the 33 participating states under the President Buhari's school feeding program. According to the minister who is in charge of the ministry, says that paying the fees early is critical to the success of the program. She says, we do not want any hitches, and we want to ensure that the school children are fed on time and without any excuses. That's according to the minister, Hajia Sadiya Farouk. She went on to say that the government will not accept any drop in the nutritional quality of the meals given to the children. She said that the government has accepted the improved performance of school attendance and improved hygiene among the pupils, and that the outcome of the program is actually going forward. Under the National Homegrown School Feeding Program, a total of 9.936 million school pupils in Nigeria are being fed in 54,942 schools across the country and served by 107,862 suppliers and cooks across the country. That's the latest this morning from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and, of course, Social Development.